He was the CEO who owned skyscrapers, but she owned nothing, not even a safe place to sleep. He wore a designer coat, but she wore torn clothes and clutched a broken photograph like it was her last treasure. He had the world at his feet, but she was invisible to the same world that praised him. Yet when their eyes met, something shattered inside him. Not pity, not curiosity, recognition. She whispered his name like a secret she had been carrying for years. But how did a homeless girl know the name of a wealthy CEO? His heart pounded as she stared at him with tears in her eyes. But why did she look at him like he had once broken her life? She turned to run. But what was she hiding from him? Why did she carry his past in her hands? And what dark truth connected a powerful CEO to a girl living on the streets? If he followed her, his perfect world would collapse. But if he didn't, would he lose the love he never knew he was searching for? Ethan Caldwell had learned to move through crowds without being touched. For the past 10 years, every step he took was surrounded by security, assistants, flashing cameras, and board members waiting for his next decision. He owned luxury penthouses in 3 countries, a private jet, and a company valued at billions. People bowed when he entered rooms. Stock markets shifted when he spoke. But tonight, he had slipped away from all of it. No bodyguards, no tailored suit. Just a plain jacket and restless thoughts. As he walked through a forgotten street downtown, that was when he saw her. She sat on the cold pavement with her knees drawn to her chest, as if she were trying to disappear into herself. Her hair was tangled, her cheeks hollow, her lips cracked. She looked young, maybe early 20s, but her eyes carried the exhaustion of someone who had lived too long in survival mode. She wasn't begging. She wasn't asking for help. She was staring at something in her hands, a photograph. Ethan slowed down. There was something about the way she held it, gentle, protective, like it was the last piece of her soul. A memory flashed through his mind without warning, a woman laughing in a tiny kitchen, the smell of coffee, a soft voice calling his name. He shook his head. Old ghosts. As he passed her, her eyes lifted. Gray, sharp, intelligent. For a second, it felt like she was looking past his expensive jacket, past the man the world knew, and straight into the boy he used to be. Her lips moved. Ethan. His breath caught. "I'm sorry," he said, turning back. Her eyes widened like she'd exposed herself. Panic crossed her face. Then, distant sirens echoed. She jumped to her feet, the photo slipping from her fingers. Without another word, she turned and ran. "Wait," Ethan called. She disappeared into the darkness. He bent down and picked up the photograph. His world stopped. It was him. Younger, poorer, smiling, standing beside a woman holding a baby. The woman's smile was warm, kind, unforgettable. Grace Harper. His chest tightened. A flashback stabbed him. Grace standing by a bus stop, tears in her eyes, asking, "Are you really leaving?" He had promised to come back. He never did. Behind a parked car across the street, Victor Hale watched quietly. A tall man in a dark coat, eyes sharp, mouth curved in a knowing smile. He tapped his phone and typed. He found her. Ethan slipped the photo into his wallet, unaware he was being watched. As he turned to leave, he didn't notice the faint writing on the back of the photo. "If anything happens to me, protect my daughter." Signed, Grace. His past had finally caught him, and it wasn't done with him yet. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He lay on the massive king-size bed in his penthouse, staring at the ceiling, the city lights bleeding through the glass walls. The photograph rested on his chest like a weight he couldn't remove. He turned it over again and again, tracing Grace's smile with his thumb. A memory slipped in, her laughter echoing in a cramped kitchen, her teasing him for burning toast, her eyes glowing when she spoke about her daughter. "Lena will love you," Grace had once said softly. Ethan closed his eyes. He hadn't even gone to Lena's birthday. Down on the streets, the girl Lena ran until her lungs burned. She ducked behind a dumpster, pressed her back against the cold brick wall, and slid to the ground. Her heart pounded wildly. "He found me," she whispered to herself. She pulled out the torn half of the photograph she still carried. Her fingers trembled as she touched her mother's face. A flashback surged. Grace kneeling beside her bed, brushing her hair, saying, "No matter what happens, you're strong. Remember that." Lena had been 12 when she found her mother on the kitchen floor, unresponsive. The ambulance sirens, the hospital smell, A doctor shaking his head. She swallowed hard. I found him, Mama. But I don't know if he deserves to know me. She murmured. Across the city, Victor Hale sat in his private office, swirling a glass of whiskey. The skyline reflected in the dark windows. He smirked as he replayed Ethan's frozen expression in his mind. So the past finally caught up with you, Victor muttered. His assistant knocked. Sir, should I proceed? Victor nodded slowly. Yes. Keep eyes on the girl. And on Ethan. He leaned back, remembering Grace standing in front of him years ago, holding hospital files. You're laundering money through medical contracts, she had said, fearless. Victor had laughed then. And who's going to believe a nurse? He crushed that memory away and raised his glass. You should have stayed quiet. Morning came too fast. Ethan arrived at his office late, something he hadn't done in years. His assistant, Rachel, followed him nervously. You missed 3 board calls, she said. I don't care. He snapped, then softened. Find out everything about Grace Harper. Rachel froze. From when, sir? 18 years ago. His phone buzzed. And no number. Stop looking for her. Ethan's jaw tightened. Trace that number, he told Rachel. Now. Meanwhile, Lena stood in line at a soup kitchen. She pulled her hood lower, afraid every stranger was watching her. A volunteer smiled. Here you go, sweetheart. Thank you, Lena whispered, her voice soft but educated, something that didn't match her appearance. She sat beside an old woman who glanced at her. You talk like someone who went to school, the woman said. Lena forced a small smile. My mom loved books. A black car slowly rolled past the kitchen. Inside, a man with dark glasses took photos, foreshadowing. Wrapped in silence, Ethan stared out his office window, gripping the photo. His reflection looked unfamiliar, rich, powerful, but hollow. I'm not running this time, he whispered. He had no idea how dangerous that promise would become. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her. He wandered the streets again that evening, this time without purpose, letting the city noises guide him. Neon signs flickered on wet asphalt, and the smell of fried food mixed with exhaust fumes. Somewhere in the distance, a bus groaned to a stop. But Ethan's eyes were fixed on the shadows between alleys, searching for the girl who had vanished. Then he saw her again, Lena. She crouched near a closed bookstore, knees tucked, eyes scanning the street like she expected danger at any moment. The photo was gone this time. She was empty-handed, yet her presence pulled something inside him, a memory he didn't realize he had been running from. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her. Lena, his voice barely rose above a whisper. She flinched, shoving her hood lower. Who are you? I'm Ethan. Her eyes widened. Recognition, fear. Something else he couldn't read. You shouldn't be here, she said, standing. Her voice was strong, but her hands shook. Ethan stepped closer. I saw you the other night. With the photo, he paused. I need to understand. She hesitated. Memories swirled Grace's words, the warmth of her mother's hands, the night everything changed. She remembered a man's voice from long ago, soft and promising, then sharp with departure. My mother. She trusted you, Lena whispered. Do you even know what that cost me? Ethan's chest tightened. The city seemed to fade around them as he recalled Grace kneeling in their tiny apartment, holding him close. Promise me you'll protect her, she'd said, clutching his hands. And then the scream, the aneurysm, her life stolen while he was away chasing ambition. I failed, Ethan admitted quietly, guilt gnawing at him. I never should have left. I'm here now, she looked at him, searching for lies, excuses, redemption. Why now? She asked. After all these years. I don't know, he said. But I know I need to make it right. A distant car horn made her flinch, and she stepped back. You don't understand. You have a life, a world I could never belong to. Just walk away. Ethan shook his head. I can't, not this time. For a moment, the street was silent, except for the faint echo of sirens far away. He noticed the way her eyes darted, a flicker of something familiar, Grace under pressure. The same determination he remembered in her mother. Lena Harper had survived more than anyone should have, and yet here she was. Foreshadowing hinted at the danger surrounding them. The shadows themselves seemed to quiet, veer to tense. Victor Hale's influence lingered like a storm waiting to break. Ethan extended his hand slowly. Let me at least help you. Just a little. Please. She studied him, hesitation battling hope. Finally, after a long pause, she said, maybe. Maybe just a little. And that was the first step toward uncovering a past neither of them had ever fully escaped. Ethan led Lena down quieter streets, away from the bright lights and the occasional honk of impatient drivers. His penthouse, his private life, his world of wealth had all felt distant, almost meaningless, compared to the raw intensity of this moment. Lena walked beside him, cautious, her eyes flicking to every shadow. Even in the dim light, he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her body flinched at the smallest sound. "Why did you leave?" she asked suddenly, her voice trembling but firm. "Why didn't you come back when she needed you?" Ethan swallowed hard. Memories of 18 years ago slammed into him like a freight train. Grace Harper had been radiant in their tiny apartment, holding Lena on her hip, saying, "Ethan, promise me, no matter what happens, you'll always be there for her." And he had nodded, eyes full of dreams and ambition. But ambition had pulled him away, sucked him into investors, meetings, and the promise of building an empire. Grace's voice had haunted him ever since, her final words echoing, "Don't let the world take her too." "I failed her," Ethan admitted quietly, his voice almost breaking. "I chased a life I thought I wanted. I left her. I left both of you." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "You think that explains it? You don't know what it was like sleeping in alleys, fending for myself, no one to protect me." She looked away, ashamed. "But somehow, I survived." He wanted to reach out, to hold her, to promise her that nothing would hurt her again. But he hesitated, unsure if she would let him. "You shouldn't have had to," he said softly. "No one should have left you alone like that." Her gaze returned to him, sharp and calculating. "And yet here you are. How do I know this isn't just guilt? That this isn't some rich man's fantasy?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Because I'm not asking for anything. I don't want your forgiveness, not yet. I just need to help. I need to make sure you're safe." A flash of memory crossed Lena's mind, Grace's warm hands, tucking her into bed, whispering, "You must survive, Lena. One day, someone worthy will find you." She blinked, realizing the echo of her mother's words now aligned with Ethan's presence. Could he be that someone? Or was this another disappointment? They walked in silence for a few blocks, the hum of the city fading behind them. Lena's mind was a storm of conflicting emotions: fear, hope, disbelief. Ethan, meanwhile, felt a strange blend of anxiety and resolve. The girl he had left behind was here, alive, and yet she was a stranger in so many ways. Foreshadowing whispered in the night air. The dark figure of Victor Hale lingered in the back alleys of Ethan's memories, a presence as threatening as it was invisible. He had invested in Ethan's company years ago, and Ethan had turned him down, something Victor never forgave. The pieces were aligning: Lena, the photo, his guilt, and Victor's ever-watchful eye. Danger was close. "Why are you helping me?" Lena asked finally, her voice quieter, almost scared. Ethan glanced at her, eyes steady. "Because you're the reason my world matters now. Because I owe you and your mother more than I can ever repay." A sudden noise from the alley made them both flinch, a metal can rolling across the pavement. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He glanced around, alert, heart pounding, as if the night itself had become a warning. And in that brief instant, Lena realized just how deeply connected their fates already were, past and present intertwining in ways neither of them could yet fully comprehend. Ethan guided Lena into a quiet coffee shop tucked away from the main street, a place where the smell of roasted beans masked the chill of the night. They took a booth in the corner, shadows falling over them like a protective curtain. Ethan ordered 2 coffees, silently observing her. Lena's fingers nervously traced the rim of her cup, her eyes flicking to every passerby as if she expected the world to collapse around her. "You've been through a lot," Ethan said gently, breaking the silence. "I don't want to pretend I understand, but I want to know." She looked at him, hesitating. A flicker of something, trust, fear, hope passed through her eyes. "My mother. She loved books," Lena began, voice soft. "She used to read to me every night. I remember one evening, she laughed because I kept asking why the stars weren't in the right place in the storybook. She always had a way of making the world feel safe, even when it wasn't." Ethan's throat tightened. Grace's laugh echoed in his memory, the tiny apartment smelling of bread and sunlight. He had promised her he'd always be there for her daughter. And for all these years, he hadn't been, and then she died. Lena continued, her voice catching. I was 12. Alone. No family. The foster homes. The streets. I learned to survive, to hide, to keep my mother alive in my memories. That's why I carry this. She pulled out the torn photograph, the edges frayed. This is all I have left of her. And of the life I was supposed to have. Ethan reached out, gently touching her hand. I am so sorry, Lena. I left you. I thought I was doing what I needed to build a life for us, but I failed both of you. His voice wavered. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to make sure you're safe now. That you never feel abandoned again. Her eyes searched his, trying to read the sincerity in his expression. Lena had learned to be cautious. Years on the streets taught her that trust could be deadly. Yet, something in him stirred a fragile hope. Why now? She whispered. After all these years, why do you care? Ethan's gaze softened, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through the CEO armor. Because seeing you tonight, seeing you holding that photo, it reminded me of what I lost. And I can't fix the past, but I can fight for the future. For you, for her memory. A brief silence fell. Outside, the city continued its chaotic rhythm, indifferent to their reunion. Lena's mind raced, remembering all the nights she had imagined a man like him finding her, but never truly believing it could happen. A sudden flashback, Grace's warm hands tucking her and whispering, one day, someone worthy will find you, made her realize the possibility that Ethan might be that someone. But then doubt crept in. And what if you fail again? She asked. What if the world takes you away like it took her? Ethan held her gaze firmly. Then I fight. I don't let it happen again. His words hung in the air, a promise weighted with truth and regret. In that moment, the seed of trust began to take root. Lena's defenses softened, just enough to allow herself to consider that maybe, just maybe, this powerful CEO, the man she had never stopped thinking about, might actually be on her side. But outside, the shadows lengthened, and seeing eyes watched. Danger was close. Victor Hale's presence lingered, foreshadowing a storm neither of them was yet prepared to face. And as the night deepened, both Ethan and Lena knew that this reunion, fragile as it was, had already begun a chain of events that would change their lives forever. Ethan walked Lena back into the narrow streets after leaving the coffee shop, his mind racing. The city was quieter now, but the shadows seemed heavier, almost alive. Lena kept her hood low, eyes darting nervously to every darkened alley. He noticed how alert she was, how every step she took was measured, like she had learned to anticipate danger years before. Why do you keep looking over your shoulder? Ethan asked softly. Lena hesitated. Because the world doesn't care if you live or die. Not people like me. Her voice was steady, but her hands fidgeted with the sleeve of her jacket. I learned that early. Ethan's chest tightened. Memories of Grace flashed through his mind, the way she had held Lena as a child, whispering, stay strong. No matter what happens. He remembered promising Grace he would always protect them. And he hadn't. That failure weighed on him like a physical pain. I'm not going to let that happen again, he said quietly, almost to himself. I'm going to make sure you're safe. Lena looked at him, suspicion and hope colliding in her eyes. Why me? She asked. Why now? After all these years? Ethan paused, his fingers brushing against the torn photograph he had kept in his wallet. Because I saw you tonight, and I realized I can't undo the past. But I can do something now. I can be here for you. I have to. A sudden flashback hit Lena. Grace kneeling beside her bed, brushing her hair, whispering, one day, someone worthy will find you. Wait for them. She swallowed hard. Could Ethan be that someone? Or was he just another disappointment waiting to happen? They walked in silence for a few moments. Ethan noticed the faint tremor in Lena's hands, the way she kept glancing at every passerby. She had survived the streets, but the scars ran deep. He wanted to hold her, to shield her from the harsh world, but he knew trust couldn't be forced. Do you ever dream about a different life? Ethan asked softly. Lena looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of pain and longing. Every day, she admitted. A life where my mother didn't die, where I wasn't alone, where I could belong somewhere. Ethan nodded, understanding more than she could know. He remembered the nights he had spent building his empire, ignoring the emptiness that gnawed at him. He had wealth, power, recognition, but not peace. Not family. not Lena. Foreshadowing lingered in the air, the faint hum of a car behind them, the shadow slipping along the walls. Victor Hale had always had a way of watching from afar, his presence a constant threat. Ethan felt it instinctively. Danger was close. Lena finally spoke again, her voice softer now. I don't know if I can trust you. Ethan met her gaze steadily. I don't expect you to, but I'll spend every day proving that I'm here for you, that I won't leave again. The night stretched on, quiet but tense, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Both knew this fragile reunion was just the beginning. Shadows of the past and threats of the present were closing in, and neither of them could yet see what lay ahead. But for the first time in years, Lena felt a sliver of hope, and Ethan felt the first spark of redemption. Ethan and Lena had walked for what felt like hours, weaving through narrow alleys and quiet streets where the neon lights of downtown faded into darkness. Every step was deliberate, measured, as if the city itself was holding its breath around them. Ethan could feel Lena's tension, the way her hands fidgeted with the sleeves of her jacket, the occasional nervous glance over her shoulder. She had survived on the streets long enough to read danger before it even arrived. You know, you could have just disappeared tonight, Ethan said quietly, breaking the silence. I don't even know why you let me see you. Lena's gray eyes met his, sharp and wary. You wouldn't understand. You have a life, a world I could never belong to. People like you don't notice people like me. Ethan's chest tightened. Memories of Grace flooded in her voice, gentle but firm. Ethan, promise me you'll always protect her. No matter what happens, he had promised. But ambition, greed, and the relentless pursuit of wealth had taken him away from both Grace and Lena. The guilt had haunted him every day since. I don't want your pity, Lena continued. I've learned to survive, alone, but tonight, seeing you, her voice caught. She swallowed hard. I don't know. Maybe it's hope. Maybe it's fear. I don't know if I can trust it. You don't have to trust it yet, Ethan said. I need to make sure you're safe. That's all. You deserve that much. Lena hesitated, then spoke softly. My mother. She always said one day someone worthy would find me. Someone who would protect me. I didn't believe it. Not for a second. A flicker of a smile crossed her face, fleeting and fragile. Maybe that someone is you. Ethan's throat tightened. He remembered the small apartment, the warmth of Grace's hands, the smell of fresh bread, the laughter that had once filled the air. He had abandoned that life for wealth and power, and now, years later, the girl he had left behind was standing before him, alive, wary, and defiant. A sudden noise, metal scraping against pavement, made both of them flinch. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He scanned the alleys, noticing a shadow that moved just beyond the street light. Victor Hale, always watching, always waiting. Danger was closer than ever, but Ethan couldn't let it frighten Lena. I promise, Ethan said quietly, his hand hovering near hers but not touching. I won't let anyone hurt you. I don't care what it takes. I'll protect you, Lena, always. She studied him, her eyes searching for any hint of deceit, any echo of the past disappointments that had shaped her. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay, she whispered, maybe I'll let you. For a moment, silence wrapped around them like a fragile shield. The city continued its distant hum, indifferent to their reunion. Yet beneath the surface, the tension simmered. Every shadow, every whisper of wind, hinted at the dangers waiting just out of sight. Victor Hale's reach extended farther than either of them could see, and the past they thought was behind them was already shaping the next moves of their lives. As they walked together, side by side, both knew that this fragile bond, born of loss, guilt, and the faintest spark of hope, was just the beginning. The streets had brought them together, but the shadows would test their trust, their courage, and the love that had only just begun to bloom. The following night, Ethan arranged for Lena to stay somewhere safe. A modest apartment he rented under an alias. It wasn't the penthouse, it wasn't luxury, but it had walls, warmth, and a sense of protection she hadn't known in years. Lena stepped inside hesitantly, touching the furniture as if testing whether it was real, her eyes lingering on the small stack of books Ethan had placed on the table. Poetry, novels, stories, everything her mother might have once read to her. This is too much, Lena said quietly, her voice trembling. I don't need luxuries. I need safety. I need peace. You'll have both, Ethan said, his tone gentle but firm. I can't fix the past, Lena, but I can protect your present, and maybe help shape your future. She studied him carefully, noticing the exhaustion etched in his eyes beneath the carefully groomed exterior. Why me? She asked again, her voice almost a whisper. Why now? After everything that happened. Why do you care? Ethan's hand hovered near hers but didn't touch. He remembered Grace's last words vividly. Ethan, don't let the world take her too. Protect her. And he had failed. For years, he had carried the guilt, buried under board meetings, stock reports, and public appearances. But Lena's presence brought it all back with a burning clarity. Because you're her, he said finally. You're Grace's daughter, and she trusted me to keep you safe. I failed her once. I won't fail you. Lena's lips trembled, a mixture of anger and longing flashing across her face. Memories of cold nights, of hunger, of strangers' cruel words, swirled in her mind. She had survived the streets, yes, but every day had left invisible scars. And now, facing Ethan, the boy she had known as a child's friend, and the man she barely recognized, she felt something she hadn't dared to feel in years, hope. A silence fell between them, heavy but not oppressive. Ethan studied her, noticing the way she flinched at every sound, the cautious way she moved. I know this is a lot, he said softly. I'm not asking for trust tonight. Just let me prove I'm here for you. Her eyes softened, ever so slightly. I don't know if I can trust you yet, she admitted. But maybe I'll let you try. Foreshadowing hovered in the apartment like an uninvited guest. The faint hum of distant traffic reminded Ethan of the dangers still lurking. Victor Hale's shadow stretched far, always observing, waiting for the right moment. Ethan knew that keeping Lena safe would require more than money or influence. It would require courage, cunning, and unwavering vigilance. Rest tonight, Ethan said, offering her a small smile. Tomorrow, we start figuring out how to protect you. I promise. Lena nodded, allowing herself to believe, just for a moment, that she might be safe. And Ethan, watching her settle into the worn couch with a blanket he had brought, felt the first flicker of something he hadn't felt in years: redemption. The night outside was quiet, but shadows moved beyond the walls, silent and patient. Danger was coming, and neither of them would be ready. But for now, in this fragile cocoon of safety and trust, they allowed themselves a fleeting sense of peace. Morning came with a gray haze, the city half asleep and half watchful. Ethan arrived at his office, but today, meetings and schedules couldn't hold his mind. Lena's face lingered in every shadow of memory. He replayed every word from last night, every flicker of emotion in her eyes, and realized how much of himself he had ignored for 18 years. He sat in his corner office, overlooking the skyline that seemed smaller today, inconsequential compared to the fragile girl he had found. His assistant, Rachel, entered cautiously. Sir, the board is asking for your strategy report, she said. Ethan waved her off. Not today. I have other priorities. Meanwhile, Lena walked the streets near her temporary apartment, blending into the crowd. She carried a small notebook she had found at the coffee shop the night before, scribbling thoughts, memories, fears. Each word was a lifeline, a thread connecting her to her mother, and now, unexpectedly, to Ethan. Her mind drifted to a flashback the night Grace had passed, holding her tightly. Be brave, Lena, her mother whispered. Even when I'm gone. Lena's chest tightened. She had been brave, but it had been lonely, terrifying, and unforgiving. And now, someone from her past, someone tied to her mother, was back. Could she trust him? Should she? Ethan received a call mid-morning, the voice clipped, professional. Sir, unusual activity reported near Lena's location. His stomach tightened. Victor Hale, always a shadow behind the curtains, always a threat. Ethan's mind raced. He couldn't let the past repeat itself, not with Lena, not ever. He grabbed his coat, eyes blazing with determination. Rachel, get me everything on Victor Hale, and find me Lena, now. Lena sensed eyes on her as she walked. A black sedan followed at a distance, maintaining the perfect balance between casual and threatening. Her heart thudded. She ducked into a narrow alley, pressed her back against the wall, and held her breath. She had survived like this before, but now, knowing Ethan was searching for her, the fear mixed with a strange, vulnerable hope. Ethan arrived just as she ducked behind the dumpster. He saw the sedan, the subtle movements, the poised threat. His heart pounded, but his mind was calm with purpose. "Lena," he whispered, moving closer. "It's me. I won't let him touch you." Her eyes widened, relief and caution mingling. "Ethan, he's watching. He's always there." Ethan's jaw tightened. He recalled Victor Hale's past, how he had tried to manipulate Ethan's company, how he had pursued Grace years ago, how he thrived on control and fear. The pieces aligned. Victor wasn't just a business rival. He was a predator waiting for weakness. "We'll be careful," Ethan said, taking her hand firmly. "I won't let him hurt you. Not now. Not ever." Lena nodded, trusting the sincerity in his eyes. A flicker of courage returned to her, recognition that for the first time, she wasn't facing danger alone. But foreshadowing lingered like a storm cloud. Victor's influence stretched wide, and the battle for Lena's safety had only just begun. As they disappeared into the shadows together, Ethan knew that every move, every decision, would determine whether the past would destroy them or finally allow them to reclaim a fragment of what was stolen. The city was quiet that night, but the tension in the air was palpable. Ethan led Lena to a hidden rooftop garden he had rented months ago, a small oasis above the chaos of downtown streets. Twinkling lights hung overhead, and the faint scent of jasmine lingered in the air. For the first time since they had met, Lena allowed herself to breathe fully, to feel the fragile sense of safety Ethan had promised. "You did all this for me?" she asked softly, eyes wide. Ethan smiled faintly, his usual confidence tempered with humility. "Not just for you," he said, keeping his gaze on hers. "For her, for Grace, and for me. Because I failed once, and I can't fail again." Lena's mind drifted to flashbacks, her mother kneeling beside her bed, Ethan's younger self playing with her as a child, the warmth of a family she had lost. She realized how much weight had been carried for all those years, loneliness, fear, revival. And now, this man, powerful, wealthy, flawed, was standing beside her, offering more than protection. He was offering redemption. "Do you really mean it?" she asked, her voice trembling. "That you'll stay? That you'll fight for me?" Ethan took her hands in his, steady and firm. "Every day. I don't care what it takes. I've lost too much to let fear or pride keep us apart again." A shadow moved across the rooftop, faint but deliberate. Victor Hale. He had tracked them, his presence like a cold wind against the warmth Ethan and Lena were building. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had known this confrontation was coming, but he hadn't anticipated it would be so close, so personal. "You think you can hide her from me?" Victor's voice carried across the rooftop, mocking and confident. "She's just a girl. And you're just a man trying to fix the past." Ethan stepped in front of Lena, shielding her. "She's not just a girl. She's the daughter of someone you underestimated. And I won't let you hurt her or me again." Victor laughed, dark and cold. Bold words from a man who left everything behind. "Let's see if your love protects her as well as your money protects you." In that moment, Lena realized that the life she had been surviving on the streets had prepared her for this. The fear she once felt was tempered with courage. She stepped forward, holding Ethan's hand tightly. "We're not running," she said. "Not this time." Foreshadowing flashed in her mind the survival skills she had learned, the way she had navigated darkness alone. This wasn't just about wealth or power. This was about resilience, trust, and the bond forming between her and Ethan. Victor's smirk faltered slightly, noticing the determination in both of them. Ethan's protective stance and Lena's newfound courage created an unspoken alliance that even Victor couldn't ignore. He retreated into the shadows, leaving a warning in the form of a last, chilling glance. As silence returned to the rooftop, Ethan exhaled, finally allowing himself to relax. "You're safe. For now," he murmured. Lena leaned into him, feeling warmth she hadn't felt in years. I believe you this time," she whispered. And under the soft glow of string lights, surrounded by the city that had once been indifferent, the wealthy CEO and the girl he had found on the streets allowed themselves to imagine a life together. A life where love, redemption, and courage intertwined, a life that began not with wealth, but with survival, trust, and an unwavering promise to protect each other. Outside, the city continued to hum. The shadows lingered, but for the first time, neither of them were afraid. Their pasts had collided, their present was forged in trust, and their future, uncertain but shared, was finally within reach.